Hello and welcome to this edition of the Monthly Mystical. We have Christa V today, and she's talking about the Goetia or the Goetia. Right, so let's, without any further ado, let's get her back in. And admit, here we go. Lovely. And there we are. Hi, Christa.
Hello, Jackie. How are you?
Doing good, doing good. So we are talking about the Goetia today. Is it Goetia or Goetia?
Yes, I was listening to Stephen Skinner a week ago, and he says Goetia, and then I listened to Dr. Justin Sledge, and he says Goetia. So it's Greek. So I suppose Goetia would be good.
Well, that's a good start. So now I know what to call it properly.
Yeah, I've never really bothered too much with that, but I do hear people using the term differently. But, we can just talk about the lesser key of Soloman as well, which the Lemegeton, which is also, used for this specific, body of work.
Okay, yeah.
So that's good.
Mm-hmm. Cool. So tell me something about the Goetia then.
Yeah. So, this came late to me in my life. I've always heard about it, and I've read a little bit about it, but, I was this sort of armchair magician for a long time. And I always said, I'm sort of a kitchen magician, because if one really wants to do something, you just see, oh, do I have basil? Do I have some incense? Do I have something else? And bang, you can do whatever you need. But I really was keen to do something that has ritual, that has theater, that is really out there. So then I started really concentrating firstly on the MacGregor Mathers and Little a book, on the Goetia. And I thought, okay, let me read this and see where I can go. Now, this really came into being sort of in the Middle Ages, but we do know that some parts of what we know of King Solomon and the magic that he used to contain spirits and to get spirits to do what he wanted them to do, come all the way from the old Hebrew times. In fact, in the Dead Sea Scrolls, there is a small parchment that talks about how King Solomon used something specific to build his temple. And of course, King Solomon and his temple is very important to us in many other groups that we attend and we go to. So obviously, then you look at the Goetia and you think, okay, this is King Solomon's 72 spirits. Now, it's also called 72 demons. I call it spirits, because, that's the way I see it. And this is how it came about, really sort of in the 17th, 18th century. It really became famous, where people started working the occult, they wanted to make this really the book. And then if you read MacGregor Mathers, if you read Stephen Skinner, definitely. And if you look at the newer magicians now, like Ashen Chasson, he wrote 2 books. He works a lot, and you can see him also. If you listen to Glitch Bottle, it's a podcast, really excellent work of Ashen Chasson that's on there. So suddenly people are starting to work this. And what happened to me in the Goetia is, so you read what you have to do and you see what you have to do and you think, okay, am I really ready to just jump in and do it myself? Because obviously, although we meditate and although we connect and although we try and be whatever we need to be, to jump into something like that is serious. You never know whether you've got ancient old spirits, thousands of millions of years old maybe, that are now named and used and bound by other magicians that you just want to jump in. So my friend Roy and I started working together for a little while, but I also work on my own. So if you look at the Lemegeton, it's got 4 parts. It's got the part where you work with the spirits, the 72 spirits.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's got 3 other parts. And you've got the Ars Notoria, which you don't bound spirits. It's a learning module, how to learn faster. And you also have a section where you call only angels. That has got a very specific way of doing it with a very, specific stand and scrying. But let's just go to the piece where I'm sort of, more au fait with. And what I started doing is I don't have a 9 feet circle, but you do have to work in a circle. So you start with, how am I going to draw my circle?
Mm-hmm.
And how am I going to work in that circle? And you can use flour or a sheet and draw something on it, or stones or sand, rice, whatever you feel is important. Some people even just put like a rope in a circle, but you have to work in your circle. That's the most important.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you are probably very familiar with circles and the working thereof.
Yeah, a bit.
Yeah, exactly. So that's the first thing. You have to just at least construct something, and it doesn't have to be that elaborate circle that you see in the book. Although that is certainly that I'm working on something like that. And with your skills, you probably would be able to make an amazing cloth that can be rolled out,
Ooh, now there's an idea.
My skills are certainly not at your level, but I'm going to work at it. And then, of course, you need your triangle, where you normally want your spirit to appear in, or where, if your spirit appears, that you can bound that in the triangle that is outside of your circle.
Okay.
So you can make a triangle of whatever, cloth or even just board.
Mm-hmm.
And then important is to have something that you can scry. So if you want to see or hear or perceive your spirit when it arrives once you've called, you want to scry in some way, pebbled or a black mirror, or a small ball, John Dee and Kelly, of course, worked in actually with a very tiny little obsidian, I believe. I found it best to either work with my crystal ball or my obsidian ball.
Mm-hmm.
That's a nice size, and I keep it there, and I keep it sort of a little bit away from candlelight, because the candlelight can flicker, but the candles are there so that I can just perceive. Now, if you work 2 together, one is the scryer and then one will be the caller. If you work alone, you need to really understand, if you do your calling, when is the spirit appearing? And sometimes they don't. I mean, I've had many workings where I had nothing, but you can perceive a change in the energy. You can perceive a drop in temperature. You can perceive a sort of a thrill over your body. Then you can sometimes perceive a flicker in the incense. You need to work on your senses so that you can feel your spirit if you work alone. Now, those preparations are important. And then if you're going to work on something specific, and I'll use, 2 specific examples for you. If you're going to work on something specific, if it's urgent, you need to work with urgency, which means you're going to sit down, you're going to have your original material, your white robe, your hexagram and pentagram of Soloman. One goes into the skirt of into sort of the seam of your robe, and the other one on your chest. And sometimes you might want to put a stole or something over if you work with different robes with different things. And in the book, it says you need a mitre and a sword and a lion's skin belt. Now, honestly, I don't have a mitre. I do have a small sword, but I work with a long crystal wand. And, that is my thing. So obviously, you need to be prepared. Now, if you're going to work fast, you're going to have to draw your sigil of the spirit that you want to call. And they are all available in all the different books. But, you know, you're going to sit down and you're going to take the right color paper or metal or whatever. If it's fast, you're not going to work metal, you know. You're going to work with paper or cardboard, and that works perfectly well, let me tell you. It doesn't have to be bronze or, you know. And then you draw that sigil, and you're going to have a bath, clothe yourself, get your space ready, and work. Now, in the book, you'll see, and Asher and Justin also talk about that. He says you have normally a 9-day fasting, prayers, etc., and then a 3-day withdrawal from society, and then your hyssop bath with all the adorations, and, you know, the clothing with all the prayers that go with putting on your robe, etc. And then you will step into the circle. And always important to also hold your astral circle with your wand or with a sword or something sharp once you're inside. Now, really, in our day and age, if your intent is strong and you know you want to do a working for something specific, then you're not going to have 9 days to do all of that. You know, obviously, you're going to be prepared in your mind because you know you've done this before, and you're going to get your sigil ready, and you're going to just get started. And then it's really, if anybody wants to start, it's like a recipe book. You know, when you start, follow the steps in the book. You know, just follow the steps. I've changed it quite a bit for myself, but I do start with the bornless one, you know, the bornless ritual.
Yeah.
And that's always part of my ritual. And I also always do a lesser banishing, you know, of the pentagram.
Yeah.
So that I feel really safe, and then I start with my work, you know.
Yeah.
And then you follow it like a recipe. You know, of course, I've memorized certain things, and I mean, I'm so in awe of our mutual friend, Alex Sumner, but how he can memorize things, and I really want to get to that level. You know?
Yeah.
I'm poor. I'm going to try and get better.
Yeah, I'm ridiculous. I can't remember anything. I do try my best.
We have to keep on doing it.
Yeah.
But you know, I've worked with 3 of the spirits quite successfully, and I think you've done Abramalin. Have you done Abramalin?
Yeah, we did.
Work?
Yeah.
So I don't think it's the same, but they're probably things that sort of connect.
There's probably similarities. I would have thought. Yeah.
But you know, you have to, when you look at the 72 spirits, many of them are doing the same thing, you know, and it's very old language in the books, you know, and the grimoires, and it's old language, you know. The spirit is to call up armies to come and help you in battle.
Some of them are really mad, yeah.
And you know, etc. There's a spirit that can teach you morals. There's a spirit that can teach you, you know, writing. There's spirit to do many things. But I'm going to just tell you one story, and I have a very important piece of jewelry that was inherited. And what happened is I went to a function in London, and I had my nice jewelry on. And I went onto the tube, on the tube, and I think actually the piece of jewelry was somebody trying to steal it from my arm, you know.
Oh no.
But it apparently wasn't the case, but we'll get to that. But I was really I was in despair. And I got home, and in the next few days, I actually decided to do a ritual. And I used the very last spirit in the book, which is Andromalius. And it's number 72. And I created my sigil. I did whatever I needed to do. I created my sigil. I saw to it that I was clean and ready. And I drew my circle, and I called. And I requested from Andromalius to return my jewelry to me. And, you know, I think magicians don't always talk about what they do in their, in their work. And of course, there are some magicians that will never talk of their successful rituals, but I'm going to use this example because it is very important that with intent and with your longing, you can make it work. And it was about a month later that I got a call from the rail police. I think it's called the
transport police, aren't they? Transport police.
Transport police.
Yeah.
Thank you. I got that from a call from the transport police that the detective that worked my case, because she was really good. She called the missing, lost and found desk, and she asked, and she found it at the lost and found desk.
Oh my gosh.
So I lost it somewhere Baker Street way, and they found it somewhere Euston way.
All right.
And a lady handed it in. So, obviously we had to close the case to say it was actually lost and not stolen. And I, of course, agreed with that because there was no other way that, I still think somebody actually tried because there was a person, very close to me that I felt a tug. But it was returned to me. And of course, I went immediately. We were on holiday at the time, but when we get back, I immediately gave thanks, of course, in my mind, but I did a ritual to give thanks. Now, that is a physical story that happened, Yeah. This is amazing. But I successfully worked with Bruno as well, the spirit Bruno, to help me with my writing, and I can see improvement, in my writing. So, but I have to say I've had many others that, you work maybe for something, more general, a happy life or whatever. And, and then you work something that doesn't work at all.
Yeah.
Currently I'm studying Paimon, the spirit Paimon, which in fact is in all the grimoires, it's mentioned as a male spirit, but it's actually female. And with the male and female thing, I'm also not entirely sure whether I want to work with that, because spirits are not really male or female. We make them that. And our world now is also moving to less of a male-female thing, almost more androgynous thinking, because that difference between male and female is blurred.
Yeah.
And I think we are moving towards that, as well in our world.
Yeah, most definitely.
So I'm just blessed that I also have a friend that knows a lot, and that I can work it. But once you've started learning the recipe and you've started learning what works for you, you can then take it a notch up, and you say, okay, now I'm going to work with the moon phases, with the correct planetary timing, and then you're going to start bringing your planetary energies. And there are people that say your triangle outside of the circle needs to be placed where you think the spirit will appear. But if you're clever, you're going to say, okay, this spirit is a sort of a Venus spirit. Let's just take an easy one, So I'm looking at where's Venus in my sky at the time. I know the spirit is connected with Venus. And then when you use your circle, put your triangle in where Venus is at the time. Because the spirit will say, okay, I know you are calling me and you're making me welcome to come in the place where I feel comfortable. See? Yeah. And that is where you bring it a notch up. Now you're going to start studying. You're going to say, okay, what are the planetary beings telling me? Where's my moon phase at this time? What am I calling for? Is the moon waxing or waning, full or new? you know, what am I seeing in my being? You're going to also start working on, what do? What do I use before I go into a circle? Stephen Skinner talks about don't eat any fish, you know, because spirits don't like strong and bad smells. You know, it's pretty amazing, but this is true, because they are spirits, you know, and this is the sort of thing that's spiritual things. We're not touching anything. It's all about smells and feelings and energy around us. You know, try not to be too full, try to be awake, try to be in your power, you know, so don't eat too much, eat the right thing, eat light, you know, vegetarian is preferable. And then take it a notch up to see what your spirit wants as an offering. Now, if you read some of the really bad writings, they say, oh, just put a meat offering down or something like that, you know, honestly. Look at and meditate on what you want to offer. It might be that you want to offer something that is in line with what you're asking. You know, if that is something like abundance, you know, put something down that is also a sign of abundance. Something like a pineapple is good. Coins are good, you know. Pineapple is always related to abundance, you know. Something green is good, that is abundance. But also think about your spirit. What does your spirit do? If you think of Paimon as a spirit, for instance, that I'm reading about, Paimon rides a dromedary. Sometimes they say a camel, sometimes a dromedary, you know, because the camel has got like 2 humps and I think the dromedary 1. Dromedary. Anyway, go and see if there's maybe a picture of that and add that to maybe flowers or some other offering of food and drink. It is always good to have an offering of food and drink, you know, for the spirit to enjoy. So then you're going to start, and you're not just going to say, okay, this, you know, once you've done your recipe book, start now, okay, you're going to memorize and start putting the subtleties in. What do I offer? It's not going to be the same thing every time. Where are the planets? You know, can I enhance my call? Now, I personally don't call in like a loud voice, you have to be here immediately and I'm going to bound you and bind you. No, I call actually like a chant in a good way, and I will raise my voice only if I don't see success. And I have never really bound a spirit with all of those very hard binds that you see in the grimoires. It might be necessary one day, I don't know. Stephen Skinner says you need to call out quite loudly because spirits just want to do what you tell them to do, you know? So you have to be clear. So I've rewritten all my notes on not thee and thou and that sort of thing. I just, you know, use normal speak like we speak today. Yeah. It's easier for me.
Well, yeah, that's right.
It's just easier for me, you know. So yeah, that's more or less Goetia and you know, the keys of Solomon in a nutshell. But I think it's also wise for all of us to go and read the Book of Solomon, go and read about the temple, go and read about the powers that Solomon had, and connect ourselves also with the ancient Solomon. And I think one can then become a magician, really to go back. You know, obviously this goes back into, if you read, I forget the name now of the person, Rod. If you read Rod, he says it goes out to Babylonian times. Now, of course, you know, if you look at the Hebrew nation also, you know, that would have been also used in magic in that time. There's mention that there's some mention of Hebrew writing, but we believe it's more sort of a Greek influence, you know, and whoever then wrote this grimoire with the 72 spirits named them and provided the information so that we know what they would look like, what their sigils would look like, and how they will appear if we see them. Now, I don't always see them, I perceive them, but you can actually see some figure in your scrying tool. You can definitely. And if you can work in a group, maybe 2 or 3 people together, you know, I would say, or 4, I would say that would be really wise in the beginning to hold the space, one to scry, one to call, and actually one to record. You know, record your session on your phone or on a recording device. It is pretty amazing when you do so. And you can hear differences in a vocal tone, and you can hear differences in sort of a rustling sound or something. You can hear that on the recording.
Wow, yeah.
You know, when you work it, and you perceive it at the time, but when you're really in the midst of working, you don't know, you know. Your own voice might change, and you might not know it. Yeah.
I didn't know. That's just reminded me, is when I went to I used to go to like a medium circle thing on a Wednesday, and she said the same sort of thing. You don't notice it. I says, well, I never see, or nothing ever happens, and blah blah blah. And she goes, well, look what you've just done. And I'd made a movement, and I was like, oh yeah, and it would be like, you know, your subtle differences, but you wouldn't notice it. So it's only afterwards, or when you start thinking about it, or again when you record it, you see what's happened. It's right, yeah. Being aware.
Did you find that you started trusting yourself more after that? Because
gosh, it took a long time though. I'm very skeptical and critical, and so it takes a long time. And even now I'll be like, nah, that wasn't that. You know?
Wow.
So, I'm very critical, but yeah,
you know, I do know that people tell me remain critical, at least somewhat,
I think,
because they don't believe everything.
No, exactly. You could just go down a rabbit hole.
I think you've got a good I have become far more trusting of myself, and, you know, confident. In the beginning, I have to say, you never know, but we've got so much information now, especially with the podcasts and the books that are available to us, that I feel very confident. And my next working will certainly be a wider working, because we should start working also for our community and for our people, you know, rather than just a very selfish workings just for ourselves, you know. Of course, any good magician will. I do know that some magicians that do work this specific working will work for payment. So you can send them the request, and they will go and sit down and work for you, so that the changes happen in your life. So they will work for a fee, and then that is their work, you know. Now, if you're really good, I think it's certainly worth it to go that level. When you do that, I think it's important that you have a certain room dedicated for that work, and that you have your tools dedicated for that. Of course, all our tools are consecrated always, but that you work. And I think in my life currently, I don't have a room dedicated to this. And I think you yourself know you've got a room that you sort of multitasking.
That's true.
We have multitasking rooms, isn't it? Because a room becomes something else as well. Your room might become your sewing room, your magic room.
I think also though, I think when you do a ritual, it brings on its own. It's a bit like having an outer temple hovering above, and then it becomes a physical temple as you work it. So I don't think, I mean, you can have a dedicated space, but I don't think it's impossible. I think it works quite well to have it, you know, because it kind of when you put it, it's like you're putting it away and then you bring it back in. So the space is, so when you redo that temple, it just sort of comes back into its own entity. That's how I perceive it, where we are, what we do. It kind of takes on its own energy, and it's a totally different energy while you're working. And then when we kind of astrally put it away, and then you put your tools away and stuff like that, and then it's just and then it just comes back again. So the energy is always I don't know. That's how I think it's.
I really like what you're saying there, you know, because I think we do it without knowing, but this is really something that I'm going to take to heart, because it's almost astrally that you put it away and bring it back, and if you have that connection, it comes back just like that.
So and recently we did because we have to take a lot of our stuff out of our house physically, and we have to bring it back, but there was one specific time where we brought the stuff back, and I was like, oh my god, when we set up again, it was just like, wow, the energies are just like flying. It was just you know, and it's just that the energy just comes, but it is like it's sitting hovering up there, and then when you set your temple up and you start working the ritual, or you start, you know, as soon as you start, that's it, it's like and the energies
fabulous yes,
the energies are there. They're very strong as well, you know. I mean, but that probably takes time to notice how strong it is, I think, because when you're just beginning, you don't know really what you're looking for, do you? So it's a bit like, I don't know, like you said, learning a recipe. Sometimes it comes out crap.
Yes. and what you are saying there is because the tools are used over and over and over again,
they've got
by people with good intent, hopefully,
and magical,
the power becomes you know, more concentrated.
That's right, and all that energy is literally accumulating. It's a bit like sparking up an electric current. And the more you use it, the more it fires up, and the more energy, the more battery it's charging, and so it is, and it gets very obviously your own personal tools shouldn't be used by anybody else. If you've got your own personal tools, now that's different. But if you're working in a group, then you would have a set of tools there for the group, or for whoever's coming in. So, but you've obviously got your own personal tools that you would keep. Once you've consecrated them, they should be just yours. But like what we've got here, we've all got our own lotus wands and things like that our own personal ones that get covered up and stuff like that. So, but but your other stuff like swords and all that, it just brings on the energy, and personally, I think
so fabulous. So fabulous. I used a long crystal wand for some work, and I left it in the lounge, and a friend came to visit, and she's not really into this sort of thing, but she picked it up and she said, my goodness, this is such a good feeling. And that really just pointed out to me that even people that don't, you know, do this sort of thing can feel the beauty of what we do in that. And you know, I think we need to also understand that there's black and white and gray, but you know, we need to just always make sure that we work with the right intent, you know.
Oh, of course,
and then our tools will also feel that. I mean, when everybody says they're working with demons, I mean, the first thing a normal outsider would say is, oh my god, demons, they must be evil, whoa, keep away, and all that. But it's not. That's just a terminology, and it was only ever seemed damned when Christianity came about. So there you go. So it's just a word, isn't it? It's not actually what it is. So yes, and unfortunately we do get some of those words also, demons, daimon, jinn, you know, from various places, from various traditions. You know, if you look at the Islamic tradition, where they often talk about jinn in a negative space, because the jinn would bring in something that they didn't want. But we can certainly use our spirits, and as they call demons very often, for very good purpose, because they can work with us. And so I think we need to just continue to meditate, to connect, and do the right thing, and hopefully, you know, we can have people working together on this one day, you know.
Yeah, no, that would be
I'm a lone
awesome.
ranger here where
Yes.
I am currently.
Well, I'll speak to you later.
Listen, and Jackie, I just want to say thank you so much for the opportunity to share. Your platform seems to just get more and more people. And I listen to your interviews. It's wonderful. So thank you so much for what you're doing.
Thank you. Oh yes. Well, you're very welcome. And it's lovely to see you, Christa. I love having chats with you. It's awesome. And yes, you can come on my platform anytime you like.
Say greetings to everybody. As you know, I'm going on holiday soon, so I'll see you when we're back.
Oh yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Have you got any any top 3 books that you would suggest for the Goetia, for people who want to start studying, or people who just want to nose and have a look and see what they think?
Well, I certainly would recommend for people to start with the MacGregor Mathers Little, just that. I would also, any book that you have on Goetia or other magic of Stephen Skinner, really fantastic. And the third one is not really a book, but I would recommend listening to any of the podcasts of Stephen Skinner on Goetia, and also Ashen Chassan. And you can ASHENCHASN, Ashen Chassan. He is a newer magician, and you can find him on the Glitch Bottle podcast. He's often on there. Glitch Bottle, very excellent podcast also. And hopefully your podcast would get to that audience one day. And it will, I'm sure. So those 3, if you can, just start with the easier one, almost, MacGregor Mathers, then anything from Stephen Skinner, and definitely Stephen Skinner and Ashen Chassan on any podcast. And if people want to learn, that's the way to go.
Excellent. Oh, brilliant. Yes. Well, I'll definitely chat to you later. Right. Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Jackie.
Thank you so much. Good weekend. Yes. Yeah. Thank you. And well, yes, I'll speak to you very soon. Have a lovely holiday.
Thank you. Bye then.
Bye. Wow. Now that was very interesting. Yeah, there's lots of information to take in there. Hope you enjoyed this lovely little chat that we've just had. And as always, if you like me, please do a little like, leave me a comment, let me know what you think, and obviously share it everywhere. That'll be great. And please subscribe to my YouTube channel, because every little subscription helps. So I'd love to see you all very soon. There's some more amazing interviews coming up, as always. So please subscribe, and then you'll get notifications when they come. I shall be doing some stuff myself very soon, so look out for that lot. That should be pretty exciting. Okay, I'll see you all soon. I'm gonna cough. Right, please excuse me. All right, lovely. See you soon. Have a fabulous day.